Yeah, definitely. So Pyth is an Oracle network. I think how I characterize it, even to my parents or non-crypto friends, we often describe it as Spotify, but for financial data. We're not an intermediary. It's kind of a marketplace where owners and users of data can meet and use and get money, get value out of it.
Are you seeing an increase in demand for updates whenever prices go up and new applications start popping? Yeah.
Um,
Perhaps,
the
perhaps you,
yeah.
perhaps you misheard me a little bit because I asked how did last week feel when the market
Oh,
crashed? Yeah, yeah.
so last week, I mean, um,
Mark, first of all, thank you for agreeing to do this, man. I'm sure we'll have a good time.
Jim, George, thanks a lot for having me. Excited to talk with you for the upcoming space.
Before we dive deeper into what you guys at Pyth are up to and what you guys are doing, can you perhaps just tell us a little bit more about yourself? What were you doing before Pyth, before crypto, and how long have you been with the project?
Definitely. So my name is Mark. I'm French. I'm 27 years old. Before crypto, and I mean, it was very different. I used to work in the radiology industry. So I used to live in Hong Kong, and for 3 years worked at Gearbay, one of the biggest kind of radiology company in the world, specifically like selling contrast media. So very different from DeFi and crypto. But somehow discovered crypto while being in Hong Kong about 5 years ago. Out of luck, very much. I changed apartment and I moved in, and the guy living there was just an OG crypto guy. And like we started talking about it and very much loved the political or philosophical angle of it. Very much the dissociation of money and banks and government. And this really like struck me through and I loved it. And for example, throughout 2019 and early 2020, I was just reading stuff, docs, papers, explainers, very much trying to understand how it works, and actually put my first money into crypto post-COVID crash, but very much continue using daily all like crypto protocols. DeFi summer arrived in 2020, so it was very, very fun. And during 2020, I was like, I was still working at my normie job, let's say, but I was spending more time after work doing crypto stuff that I was like, okay, maybe I should try to go full-time crypto. In early 21, I got connected with what the co-founder of Duro Labs, so one of the contributors of the Pyth Network, and so started working for the Pyth Data Association for like more than 3.5 years now. And as of today, I've become a director of the association, but day to day focus mostly on the, let's say, the usage of the Pyth Oracle in DeFi and also do a bunch of governance.
We'll dive deeper into this, but just out of curiosity, when you were starting to get excited about crypto, do you remember, because you mentioned you were reading about and doing, do you remember which was the first kind of, yeah, what did you start learning about at first?
Very much, I think the crypto or the protocol that first interested me, and I was like, wow, this is like a breakthrough was Monero. So, funnily enough, very much this privacy aspect of it, like still feels paramount to me. It's akin to, let's say, using cash today. Like while there is bad rep of using privacy solution, we kind of have this in real life with the cash. And just yeah, the whole like ideal, the value prop of Monero really spoke to me initially. And for example, another kind of project I really got a held on early on was Solana, because while I did a bunch of DeFi summer on ETH, I very much align or agree that like using a blockchain should almost be free or as close to free as possible, just because if we want, we always talk about mass adoption, but one thing that many people forget is that by mass adoption, it means like all of Southeast Asia, all of Africa, which paying $1 fees per transaction is definitely not possible. So was like lucky to be, let's say, early on exposed to the Solana ecosystem, and it was very much you do 500 transactions a day and you don't even like you spend 2 cents.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned this because we tweeted out today that the gas fees on Ethereum are like at historical lows right now, and they're below 1 GUI, which adds up to about 90 cents per swap or something like that. Even though we haven't seen these prices for I don't remember how long, even before DeFi summer, it still gets us back to that saying that Vitalik said, like the future of finance shouldn't cost, what was it, like a few cents per transaction, but when it's below $1 now, we're just happy with it because yeah.
No, definitely. And I think this speaks greatly like why we're at the lowest on-chain activity ever, it's still pretty expensive.
Right.
If we consider, I mean, if you do $1 million trades, yeah, a few cents, you don't care. It's even cheaper than banks. But
Most people are not doing
sadly,
$1 million trades.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into what you guys are up to at Pyth. So can you just, in layman's terms, what is Pyth Network? What do you guys do?
Yeah, definitely. So Pyth is an Oracle network. I think how I characterize it, even to my parents or non-crypto friends, we often describe it as Spotify, but for financial data. The whole idea is so Pyth product, its main product is price feeds for DeFi application. And after maybe we'll go deeper into why DeFi apps need Oracle and price feeds. But
Yeah.
the whole idea of Pyth is like permissionless pull or on-demand price feeds for anyone to use. And it's built not so much as a generalized infrastructure where you have a bunch of nodes doing jobs, but rather we focused almost on the data distribution, financial data distribution model, whereby actually most of the financial data is not free. Like only in crypto it's free, let's say, or mostly free. But whenever you go to US stocks, FX, etc., this data is actually not available to us mere mortals, or the data you get is 10 minutes delayed. And this by law. And why? I mean, it's a big business. US stock exchange, like 25% of the revenue is selling data. Crypto exchange don't do this. And so Pyth very much came from the realization of creating this marketplace whereby data owner, so exchanges and trading firms create data, have access to data that no one else has, and they don't do much with it. So the idea was, what if you would contribute this data to an Oracle network? You'd have a demand side, which are the DeFi apps, but you'd be able to pretty much resell data. So that's pretty much how Pyth is designed. So that's why we say it's like Spotify. We don't go to Taylor Swift, but we go to Cboe, to Binance, to Virtue, to Jane Street. Okay, don't you have data to contribute? They contribute, and whenever there is usage on chain, the Oracle generates a fees that would go to the publisher in the end. So it's very much, we're not an intermediary. It's kind of a marketplace where owners and users of data can meet and use and get money, get value out of it. More recently, we announced a couple new protocol within the Pyth network umbrella. One is Entropy, so it's pretty much some on-chain randomness protocol. So if you do NFTs, if you do some lottery, you're able to get this fair and provable randomness on chain. And last month, we also announced what we call Express Relay. So it's a very generic auction protocol whereby board ending can broadcast their liquidation and people would compete on liquidation, but you have also many other cases. So this is what Pyth is today. 3 products. The main one is, of course, the price feeds. They've been live for over 3 years now. We have over 500 price feeds available on 70 blockchains. I think every day there is in between 5 to 10 million price requests on all these 70 chains, mostly for crypto. And yeah, I think it's a good start for Pyth.
Yeah, it's a pretty good start. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not perfectly sure. I didn't do my homework perfectly on this, but Pyth, didn't he start solely on Solana at first?
Yes, so the V1, so it was mm, summer or a bit before 2021. The first version of the protocol was launched on Solana mainnet. So what is this, or how does the Oracle work on a public chain? Pretty much, it was a actually very simple design, where on Solana we had one smart contract that was just aggregating inputs. So you just had publishers sending a Solana transaction. In their transaction, they would say Bitcoin equals 52,000,
Right.
etc. And they would constantly do this. So every new Solana block, they send a transaction with their new price. The P smart contract would, at each block, receive the input, and at the next block, produce you an aggregate, the output. So this was done on Solana, the V1, because, I mean, back then and still today, it was super cheap. It was likely, or at least especially in 21, it was the cheapest chain and the fastest chain. So it was kind of a proof of concept showing that we could have an Oracle network on a public chain where everyone can see what happens. This verifiability was a very important aspect for us because, I mean, market data, and especially in the traditional finance world, it's very opaque. And here we wanted, okay, everything's public, everything's verifiable. Problem is using a public blockchain, even if it's Solana, it's actually expensive because when today we have 100 publishers, if 100 publishers do transaction at every Solana block, end of day, that's a lot
And
of gas
yeah,
fees. And so, for example, I think in 2021 or 2022, at the apex, the Pyth publisher, so I'd say the Pyth network, was doing more than half of all the Solana transactions. And some days it was costing over 100 Sol. So when Sol is $8, that's fine. When Sol is at
yeah,
200, it's less fine.
different story.
Um, exactly. So cost-wise, and that's kind of the pitfall, let's say, if it's a pitfall, of using a publicly available blockchain. If everyone uses it, it becomes more expensive. And the second aspect was speed. Yeah, so Solana was the fastest chain. So it was, our goal was to, if you need a new price update at every new block on any chain, we need to be able to deliver that. And with Solana, we could. Then in end of 2022, we launched the first, let's say, SVM chain, so a blockchain with the Solana virtual machine. So pretty much we forked Solana. We call this PythNet. And pretty much we recreated a Solana where just the Pyth Oracle lives. Why did we do this? The cost I mentioned. Nowadays, being on our own app chain, like it's fake gas, pretty much.
Yeah,
The token's called P-gas on this app chain, but it's no value, it's mintable forever. And it's just to operate, let's say, the chain. And second is, as I mentioned, we're on 70 chains. If back then the V1 was on Solana, I mean, in 21, there was a bunch of Solana downtimes. If Solana's down and the Oracle lives on Solana, it doesn't work. And talking to apps not on Solana, they were like, yeah, I cannot rely on this other chain to be constantly up because it affects you. So having our own app chain also alleviates this problem because you don't have NFT mints, you don't have like people spamming to liquidate. So it's a stable Solana pretty much.
right. And where is the demand for your services coming from mostly?
So core of it is going to be DeFi applications that require price information. So type of protocol, you have the classic ball lending. So the
Yeah,
Aave, Compound, Morpho of the world. The perpetual protocols, Synthetix, GMX, Bluefin, Drift. You also have options. I mean, 2 years ago, there was a lot more options than today, but options same every week. They need to settle options based on a price. You have Synthetix protocol that are a bit more like it's perp with less
wrappers.
leverage.
Yeah,
Exactly. So these type of DeFi apps, all the main, let's say, user of the Pyth feeds. They need price information for assets they support, whether someone wants to take a loan against an asset, he wants to trade on leverage. So these are, let's say, the main consumer of the Pyth network. Specifically, Pyth, given the design of the Oracle, so it's an on-demand Oracle, so its price feed updates like 2 to 3 times per second, and anyone can permissionlessly do a price update on any chain. This design was actually a killer use case for perpetual protocol. Because if you roll back the time machine 5 years ago, you had pretty much only Chainlink existing back then. And their V1 is a push oracle. So they were pushing prices at a set frequency on chain, either based on price deviation or time elapsed. The thing is, given that back then it was only Ethereum mainnet, it was pretty expensive, even back then, to do updates. So you have to limit the number of updates. It was maybe every 10 minutes or every hour, or the price deviation of like 1%. The thing is, you cannot do proper leverage trading when a price feed updates every 1%, because if I do 100x, the price move 100%, 1%, it's already 100% on my return position. So it was very bad for apps. So they had to charge a lot of fees, etc., to prevent this front running. So it was like 5 years ago, trading on chain was very small, like perpetual protocol. With Pyth design, now a perpetual protocol can actually do a price update whenever they want. So even if the price hasn't moved or moved 1 cent for Bitcoin, they'll be able to get a new price update. So the main user of Pyth today within DeFi are those perpetual protocols. And some big names, I mean, on Solana, you have all the big ones, Drift, Flash Trade, Jupiter. You had Synthetix was the first user 2 years ago on the L2s. So most of the activity we see with Pyth is going to be on L2s, or those fast side chains that are pretty cheap, where you have 1 or 2 per protocol.
Is it mostly from Solana? If there is some sort of a distribution, perhaps from which chain comes the demand?
So Solana is definitely the biggest in activity. The other 2 big are Sui and Aptos. I think Solana, Sui, Aptos, given their very low cost and speed, they're very much at the top of our like usage. And when I say usage, I will refer to number of price updates per day. It's in the millions. For Solana, Aptos, Sui, each one is over 1 million per day. On EVM, it's a different story. But one chain that has lots of activity for us right now is Gnosis and Arbitrum. Gnosis and Arbitrum, we must be around each at 40 to 50K price updates per day, mostly coming from, so we have Vela, we have HMX, we have Perennial, we have Mix on Arbitrum, and on Gnosis, we have Vega protocol. So these 2 chains that are very cheap to use, all the EVM ones where we get the most traction.
You mentioned the dynamics between push and pull design. So the way I imagine it with pull design is whenever I need an update, I could just pull it from Pyth, right? Whereas with competitors such as Chainlink, for example, I would have to rely on them pushing this update.
Yes.
And then you also mentioned you're getting updates in the millions from Solana, meaning there are millions of pull requests. Am I thinking in the right way? So
yes.
So
and maybe one thing, and I was thinking recently, maybe we have to repackage the pull versus push. It's very true what you say, but one thing often people are going to forget about the pull is that you can actually replicate or create a push on top of a pull. So maybe we should rebrand the pull oracle to a customizable push, whether you push whenever you want. So here you're totally right. If you're per protocol, you would pull or push whenever there's a trade or a liquidation.
Right.
But for borrow lending, actually, they do like the push model, because they don't have to, you have less leverage, so you don't
Yes.
need to have that frequent updates. But many end up being kind of lazy. And like, if someone else is pushing for me, why should I push myself?
Right.
But still, here it lacks a bit the what's the actual benefit of owning this, let's say, push mechanism? Because as you mentioned, like if I use Chainlink, I can just sit on my hands and I'll receive price updates on chain. So pretty much, I just need to write my smart contract. I don't need off-chain infrastructure. And you're right, I rely on them. But actually, the other negative part of this is, let's say you want a new price feed or you want more resolution. So rather than 1 hour heartbeat, you want half an hour or 0.1% price deviation. Here, you don't have any power. You would have to go to Chainlink and be like, can you do this for me?
Right.
The Pool Oracle, actually, where it's great, you can customize this push or automatize it every 1 second, 10 second, 10 minutes, 3 days, 1 week, etc. So
I
it's
just input my specifications and tell you guys you need to push this update every second or whenever the price moves by 0.1%, and you will be pushing it without me having to, stand out of my hands. Pretty much I can just
exactly.
sit on my hands again. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And for
That's pretty
example, we have
cool.
a and so applications can run this bot we call the scheduler. So you can run this and it will trigger the price updates for you. Or we have an integration with Gelato that almost for you or means you don't need to run the infra, you just need to fund this and you'll get your updates on chain whenever you need those.
Are you seeing an increase in demand for updates whenever prices go up and new applications start popping?
So I think the biggest driver of activity for Pyth is going to be volatility, especially with all this perpetual protocol. I mean, people trade now with 50x leverage, so they on a 2% move or even less, they get liquidated. So you have lots of trade, lots of liquidation. So whenever you have those big moves, usually end up being the days where we have the most updates, the most requests. And the other kind of main driver also is even if you don't have volatility, I mean, the past 2 years have been around airdrop farming, points farming. So whenever you have a new protocol or a new app on a new chain where people either wash trade or just do bad trades just to get activity,
Yeah.
here also we see a lot of activity on Peace Feed. So, but most recently, I think, yeah, the Gnosis growth and the Arbitrum growth were very much driven by um, actually protocols using Pyth supporting more and more markets. So they usually start with 10 markets and they can support as much as 500 that Pyth supports. So one thing that actually have been increasing our usage, let's say, has been protocols increasing the breadth of the product they offer. So now it's not 10 markets, it's like 100 crypto markets. And just because you have way more feeds requests, just more trades and more activity on chain.
Okay, now that we covered the catalysts for increased demand in updates and price feeds, what would you say is the biggest challenge in what you guys are doing?
So biggest challenge. So, I mean, I don't know if it's topical because I was going to say during bull markets, I mean, at this rate, I'm not sure. But let's not talk about the markets. But overall, whenever this like higher activity time arrives, usually means you have more coins getting launched, more chains, etc. So I think one of the most important thing is you get pulled in so many directions. Oh, 20 more new tokens here, 20 more new chains there. So it's to kind of remain focused on like whether it's improving I mean, it's constantly improving the product, but it's also what should be the new feeds assets supported by the network. So it's very much being able to kind of tune out the noise and keep shipping stuff or try to focus on things that will survive the next bear market.
Right.
It's not like we're going to have 100% hit rate on the decision,
Of course.
But that's, I think, the main or the most important thing to have in mind currently.
You mentioned earlier the entropy push launch. Can you tell us a bit more about this random number generation thing? Where why do we need it, basically? Yeah.
Yes. So you you have various ways to deliver randomness on chain. And let's say the nicest way come from Oracle, because if you're on a blockchain, everything's pretty much deterministic. So the first version of randomness were pseudo random because like it was using deterministic values. Why would you need this actual randomness on chain? So whenever, if you're an NFT guy, whenever you mint an NFT, I believe you would like to not trust the team that they wouldn't give you the shittiest NFT of the collection, but you hope for the
Yeah.
grail. So having randomness ensures that pretty much you're not gonna get scammed, or at least not biased over by people choosing you'll get that. So randomness is and even like Chainlink VRF is, let's say, the market leading protocol in this sector. It's still usage wise and value secured, I don't know, 100x smaller than DeFi, let's say. But you have many of these real life or mass adoption apps that everyone talk usually requires some randomness, whether it's going to be like those Call of Duty loot boxes, etc. You want and you need this on chain. Um, why did Pyth ship entropy end of last year? So working a lot with DeFi apps, many are running like trading competition, raffle, etc. And pretty much other solutions, existing solutions, complaints we received was it's expensive and it's slow. And our motto overall within the Pyth network is to ship stuff that like don't sell by themselves. And so we're like, okay, let's try to ship a randomness on chain, but super fast, super cheap. So we managed to do this with entropy. So the big difference with Chainlink is that we use a commit reveal design. So pretty much it's a two-party activity. You, for example, you're an app. I am a service provider. You are about to offer 10,000 NFT for minting. And pretty much you'll be able to ping me on chain, commit like hash numbers. I'll commit also hash number. It gets merged and pretty much generates completely random numbers. And from there, you can mint your NFTs. And so the benefit of this commit reveal is that it's super fast and super cheap. Rather, other protocol usually use VRF, verifiable randomness function, which are like it's a great piece of tech, but it's way more intensive computationally wise. So it's um, more expensive and slower. So till date, I think we have had about 500,000 randomness requests. Our we had a huge traction when Base launched a few months ago, because Base with all this Blast season one, etc., you had lots of gaming, lots of gambling stuff, and Entropy was like great success. It was very much the first time where we saw mass usage of Entropy. Up to date, like best days were at 30K requests per day, which is, I mean, I wouldn't have believed we were able to achieve these metrics in the first year. Blast activity is way down compared to a few months ago. So entropy is also way down on the metrics
Yeah.
there. But for example, you had recently, and I don't know if you've used Infinex. So they've been doing their launch campaign with like crates that you open, like loot boxes on Base, and like they've been doing 5 to 10K requests a day for like a full month. So overall, like I won't say it's a proof of concept of a protocol, but we were kind of also testing waters, and overall, it has managed to get traction, and it managed to get to sustain high loads. So we're actually now live on about 10 different EVMs, and very excited to see where this goes like throughout the remaining of the year. Because it's funnily enough, I mean, you just need one app, one breakthrough app, and maybe they'll do 100K requests a day. And after you kind of have this network effect getting built up. So slow and steady on entropy until that breakthrough app, I guess.
You mentioned that you guys are seeing an uptick in demands when there is substantial volatility. How did last week feel?
Sorry?
How did last week feel in this regard when the price just cratered? And yeah,
I mean, Blast, for example, on Blast, we have seen futures, a perpetual protocol. I mean, they do for the past, I would say 2 or 3 months, they have done over $1 billion in volume, which is crazy, like ranks them in the top 2 or 3 over that time. I mean, regardless, I mean, we all prefer when price go up, but to be fair, I think we see even more traction when price go up than it goes down.
yeah.
Um,
Perhaps
the
perhaps you
yeah.
perhaps you misheard me a little bit because I asked how did last week feel when the market
Oh,
crashed? Yeah, yeah.
so last week, I mean, um, we have more. I haven't updated our dashboard. We have an amazing Dune dashboard available that tracks most of our EVMs. And actually, I tweet about it like once a week just for everyone to see the stats. I would imagine that we're around the 150 increasing, like for sure 10, 20% higher than usual than the week before. And overall, like the activity, whether we deliver 100K or 10 million prices, arguably we're not going to see the difference internally. Like it, where we in these highly volatile times, we're more around all the prices still accurate because you have market dislocating. Bitcoin can trade at X on Binance, at Y on
Right.
Coinbase. And actually, Bitcoin's a bad example because it's so big and so liquid. It's very like tight around exchanges. But like we've had, for example, all these liquid stake token, all these restaking token, Easy ETH from Renzo, from Etherfi, all these things, they have very low liquidity. And many of those you cannot unstake. So last week, I think you had lots of people just selling at a loss this Easy ETH back to ETH, and market were a bit dislocated. So I think when the market are volatile, we know that activity metrics going to be way up. We're just always observing more how the publishers operate, just to ensure that we can have the most accurate prices possible.
You also mentioned the third product besides entropy. Can you expand a little bit on this?
Yes, so it's called Express Relay. The first idea of it was over a year ago. And earlier I mentioned that price feeds have a very clear, I mean, market leader for perpetual protocol, but not as good as for Bohr lending. And kind of the first idea of Express Relay was a year ago, like how can we further improve the penetration of Pyth within Bohr lending protocol? And the biggest problem, and we still see today around Bohr lending protocol, is liquidations, how liquidations are done and how much value is leaked when you liquidate a position. And for example, during that volatile time, actually, you had a position, I think it was on AAV. So AAV, they must have liquidated like close to 500 million, I think, in a day or so, and generated, I don't know, 5 to 6 million in profit
Yeah,
for the DAO.
yeah.
There was one position, it must have been an 80 million position getting liquidated, and or 8 million, sorry, I think. Yeah, 8 million. And so how Aave works, they give liquidation rewards to those who liquidate that position. And Aave pays up to 10% of the position in rewards. So if you have 8 million position to liquidate, they're going to pretty much enable you to buy it at 7.2 million. And after the thing is, when you look under the curtain or behind the curtain, it's not the liquidator that's going to make this 10% profit. This liquidator is going to actually use that profit to bid on the gas to be the first one to liquidate. And so and there was an actual liquidation, and then we reviewed the transaction. Out of 800K bonus in rewards, technically for the liquidators, less than $100 went to the liquidator. So in practice, you see ball lending, they're not incentivizing liquidators, they're actually just funneling the money to the block builder. Our angle of Express Relay is, what if we could remove the block builder from the equation and actually have the competition at the buying price of this liquidated collateral? So you still start at this 10% discount, but in, let's say, Ethereum mainnet, so you have 12-second block. So you could say you have an auction for 10 seconds. Everyone bid, okay, I will buy this collateral at 5% discount, 4% discount. And at the end of the block, you pick the winner, the highest bid, and you just enable him to liquidate that position. And so for Aave, it means that rather than give 10% of a position, they could only give 3%. So if we take this single transaction liquidation where they gave 800K in rewards, tentatively with Express Relay, they could have saved 400K. So
Right.
that's kind of the product. So this Express Relay, technically speaking, we call this like a general auction protocol. Pretty much any protocol can broadcast liquidation if you're ball lending. And you decide the parameters, expose this liquidation for 1 second, 5
Right.
seconds, whatnot. And the winner will go liquidate on your app and you like save a bunch of money. One thing I want to add before, if you have any question, is this protocol, like main use case is for ball lending, but it's actually built so that it's possible to use in many use cases. A perp protocol could actually use this to fulfill trades. An AMM, like you could rebuild a co-swap, a RFQ system, a request for quote system with this. So while we focus on the main use cases and already we have a few apps live on mainnet, Ionic on Mode using this, mostly ball lending initially, but little by little, we should see this protocol getting used in way different manner and manners we didn't even think a year ago.
Okay. So in essence, you guys are trying to cover all aspects of the market, right? You have your price feeds for, let's say, high frequency trading and perps, which can pull as many requests as they need whenever they need them. You have the RNG thing for that aspect of the market that needs RNG and potentially kind of, going beyond native crypto, but also going to, let's say, as you mentioned, games that might need randomness in any sort. And you also have the Express Relay covering borrowing and lending. What's next? Like, yeah.
So overall, all the alpha is public nowadays because the Pyth token was launched last November. The core case of it's a governance token for the Pyth DAO. And so everyone can go to forum.pyth.network. And so this is where, let's say, all the new products, all the new evolution are discussed, shared. For example, one exciting discussion right now happening on the forum is around Pyth staking. And the idea is for publishers to be able to stake token, like not solely to participate in governance, but to introduce some kind of insurance mechanism. So publisher will be able to stake tokens and would have to. And the idea is that if for some reason, I don't know, the Bitcoin price feed would be wrong, the aggregate would be wrong from Pyth, protocols could go to the DAO, be like, okay, your Bitcoin price was wrong. Here are the proof. Here's how much money I lost. And you would have pretty much the DAO review those claims and say, okay, the price of Pyth was wrong. These publishers were at fault. Let's slash them and let's give you this Pyth token as insurance payout. So I think in the forum, it's called CIP, Community Integrity Pool. So I think that's like one of the biggest things to come Of course, the DAO will have to approve this with an on-chain vote whenever it's presented. But I think that's one of the biggest and most impactful, let's say, discussion right now, because it doesn't exist anywhere else right now. The actual payout, insurance payout. And I think it just on a like high level, it just makes sense. You're a publisher, I mean, you're a user of data. You would expect like you're paying fees for this oracle that goes to the publisher, but you would want that the publisher has some like financial risk, something at risk, so that he has like less incentives to attack or even like involuntarily. Because one thing that many, I think, forget in crypto is bug. Like most of the bugs are like non-voluntary. Like bugs happen. But the thing is, if you have money at risk, you're much more likely to spend way more time verifying it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing. And after anyone was an idea, can go in the forum and suggest it. But I would say that's the thing I'm most excited about.
And it's also from another perspective, bugs happen, but so do coordinated attacks and hacks. And perhaps crypto is one of the fields. Maybe because we're full-time and mostly involved with it, we see these things every day. Perhaps for an outsider, it wouldn't be such an impression, but like from our perspective, we see hacks and attacks happening and exploits happening every day. And with an insurance system of a kind, maybe a potential exploiter looking to kind of, use Pyth would be less or completely disincentivized to do so.
And even these type of attacks, like even let's say we see it, we take it into account even at the price feed product level. For example, on Bitcoin, we have the top 32 publisher all active on this feed. Like the aggregation method used by the smart contract of Pyth like has to be reliable, because if only 20% of the publisher are wrong, either willingly or not, like you don't want this to negatively affect your product nor the apps below. So overall, like every Pyth feed will be accurate as long as the majority, so n+1, is accurate. So Bitcoin, for example, we need so then 16 various publishers, willingly or not, sending wrong data. And all these publishers either are competing in real life, like Binance and KuCoin and
Right.
Huobi, or jump trading, Virtue, Jane Street. So like we picked people that already distrust each other. So this coordinated attack is less likely. But even in the case, like that's where we put a lot of thought on the aggregation to just, if it were to happen, how can it programmatically be safe?
Okay. Well, Mark, I think this pretty much sums it up. Thanks so much for your time. Can you tell us where we can find you as well as Pyth on socials?
Yeah, definitely. So on X, it's going to be at Pyth, Pyth Network. And the best actually is going to be the website, pyth.network. And at the bottom, at the banner, at the footer, you'll see Discord, Telegram, Twitter, LinkedIn, blog, etc. If you do enjoy talking DeFi or various stuff, I would highly recommend our Discord. This is where like most of the fun happens. We have a bunch of a cool Pythian community doing various things. We have something called Impact Awards, where even you can get some Pyth token in the Discord. So come discover if you like DeFi. I mean, it's always a nice place because we're on 70 chains, so you get exposed to all various type of chain of protocols, and yeah.
And what about yourself, sir? Where can we find you?
Oh, so my Twitter must be my full name. Oh no, my Twitter must be. Oh Jesus, that's gonna be a hard
Yeah,
one.
we'll figure it out. We'll figure
Kermartite.
it out.
But yeah, on Twitter you'll Kemartiti.
Yeah.
But I'll try follow Pyth Network. Once in a while, I take over the account and I just retweet my own tweets just to pump my metrics.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, once again, thank you for this conversation. It's been a blast, as expected. We'll stay in
Thanks a lot
touch.
for having me.
Yeah.